my favorite, Facebook Live, which is coming up in just a moment. And we are going to pilot this thing together, sitting across from me, the pride of Boston Commons.
Don't let these people think I grew up in Boston. I did not.
I know. Well, by way of Mount Airy.
There you go.
Don't worry, man. Nobody's going to ever accuse you of being from Boston. You don't have that accent. But anyway, Bishop Dwayne David Reister.
And sitting across from me, one who has traveled the world in rare fashion, AME style. He has gone from the West Coast to the Midwest and found himself on the hallowed shores of Philadelphia, the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler.
Yeah, and
listen,
like
that? Was that good? Did that cover what I was, did that?
Well, you're not gonna believe this, but I was sharing the Facebook Live, and for whatever reason, since I'm only using one computer today, I only caught the very last thing, Tyler.
Tyler, that's
so I have to go back. I have to go back and play it again.
Oh wow!
So okay. since you hooked me up,
I was trying to
like those.
I was trying to make it sweet. It was like nice.
Yeah.
I was a super introduction.
Well, it's like when you get introduced to preach at a guest church, and you're still like, you're in the pulpit madly working on your message, and the person is up there talking. You don't hear any of it, So you get up and it's like, I want to thank them for that very warm, personal introduction. And in your mind is like, I don't know what he just said.
I hear you.
So, yeah, glad to see folk coming in on Facebook already. Hey, Bishop Peggy and Viola, Jeanette, glad to see you. Raphael, Gary, and Rob, all in the house. Shout us out and hit the share button on Facebook Live on this morning. So much to get to on today. Glad to see Ed Minner in as well. He said it was a great intro.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I got like I said, now I want to go back and play it back. I'm going to use that when I go to preach. When I get, before they get ready to introduce me, I'm like, no, Pastor, I've got my own introduction. Here you go. Play that.
It was almost as good as Steve Harvey's introduction to Jesus. I'm just saying.
Wow. There you go. Cut.
No,
as my mom would say, you're chopping in high cotton now. Glad to see Tasha and Star in as well. And Bernita, she said she set the alarm to be here on this morning. Come on, keep coming in, folk. Glad to see and hear each of you. And again, bring your friends and family in with you as well. Oh, boy.
Sorry, it's Thompson, because she's watching with us. She just texted me to say that she was watching. She didn't post it on Facebook, but she's watching with us from Connecticut this morning.
All right. Oh, man, perfect. And Wendell is in as well. What's up, Payne Knight? Payne Seminary representing on today. Boy, I mean, where do you begin on a day like today? How about D.C.? Your neck of the woods.
Yes.
Yesterday, I was watching Saturday I was watching the live feed of a good friend of mine, Ruben Eccles, and looks like you guys had a little bit of a MAGA march on yesterday, over the weekend.
Yeah, first of all, let's just be clear. It was a million MAGA march, and maybe they had a couple thousand people, okay? Now, notwithstanding, with the couple of thousand people that they had, there were probably more anti-protesters that were down there than there were actual MAGA people that were there. It was actually interesting. The outgoing president drove through the MAGA march waving at people while he was on his way to go play golf, which he seems to be doing every day now since people have voted against him, and he doesn't really care. There's another term I would use, but we can't use that because the FCC would give us they would come after us. So anyway, they had the march down there. I actually had to go into D.C. To handle some business yesterday and ran into the marchers. I was at the Faith in Action office, which is just a few blocks from the Capitol where they were marching around. And of course, they had their completely oversized Trump-Pence flags. And they were out. They were at restaurants. And evidently, some of the anti-protesters followed them to the restaurants and started throwing firecrackers into the restaurant areas because they were eating outside. So they were dealing with the firecrackers. 21 people got arrested. 4 people got arrested on gun charges. Some people don't realize Washington, D.C. has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. And you cannot open carry there unless pretty much you're military or police. And that includes long rifles, short, handguns, whatever. So there were people arrested on handgun charges. There were situations where the police did beat up some of the anti-protesters. A Black Lives Matter protester, a woman that was left in the middle of the street, pretty beat up badly. There was a lot of clashes between the protesters and the anti-protesters that went on most of the day and into the night. So the last that I remember, there were 21 arrests, a lot of people injured. 4 police officers were injured as well, in addition to the injuries that occurred on both sides of the battle. And unfortunately, the president's kind of stoking all this, right? He continues to stoke this fire, get his people all riled up, and then he disappears into the night. So there was actually a congresswoman-elect from Georgia, I can't remember her name right now, who was actually president and spoke at the rally. She's a big QAnon supporter because the QAnon folk out there too. Yeah, she's the QAnon person that got elected to Congress out of the state of Georgia. So while Georgia did some really great things, Georgia did some not so helpful things as well, as did Pennsylvania and many other states. So that is, yeah, I mean, D.C. was a mess. I was down there and I was looking at these people as they were walking past me. And I, as Cedric the Entertainer says, you know, black people said, I wish somebody would. You know, I was looking at them
Well,
like,
well, what's up
I wish somebody would say something about this.
Well, what's up with the counter protesters though, throwing firecrackers at them and riling them up? Why would you won? So why would you even like follow them? Let them have their day.
So there was a group of Antifa that was down there, right? So these were not just traditional protesters, right? These are people that were seriously coming down to agitate. And I hesitate to say that, but they were really there for the purpose of just agitating and throwing a problem. So, I mean, literally, folk at this point, they put their flags down. They were just sitting at restaurants because, like Philadelphia, they have streets blocked off so that people in the corners, the sidewalks blocked off so restaurants can, still be open during the pandemic. And folk were sitting there. It was a nice day out of 70-something degrees down here in D.C. And folk, they would just started walking past, throwing firecrackers. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. You just can't buy firecrackers on the corner, right? You had to plan this in advance. You knew that you were going to do this before you got down there. And so literally, they were shutting down the restaurants because, the restaurants didn't want people, eating outside, but they couldn't be inside. And so it was causing a lot of problems.
Wow. So
yeah.
the Trump folk have not given up. And the president, as you said, is stoking it. I've been giving that some thought recently. And I know for a lot of folk, there is the thought that, this is undermining democracy, which it is for sure.
Yeah.
And, we kind of think worst case scenarios. But, a thought hit me as I kind of reflected on it, which is for some of these folk, man, they've never accepted defeat. I mean, you go back, let's just talk about 2008 with Barack Obama's election. They continue to say, not my president. So they conveniently created birtherism, and birtherism gave them the out. So, well, he was not really American, so technically he was never the president. Now with Joe Biden, well, the election was stolen by black folk in these illicit ballots that came in after Donald Trump had actually won the election, so they say. So Biden is not really the president. But let's go back to 1865. And at the end of the Civil War, for almost half of this country, the losing half, the South, they began at that moment saying the South will rise again.
That's right.
And we're just laying low, we're just waiting and biding our time. And so really, I think what we're witnessing is the verbal expression of a sentiment that has always been there. Now, Donald Trump could not gin all this up on his own in 4 years or even the 8 years leading up to this, because he started becoming really active in this race baiting with Barack Obama's rise and ascendancy. So if that's the case, then, I think we just have to accept the fact that this is what America is. And for that segment that has never been able to accept the fact that the Union Army defeated them, that's just that's the headspace that they're going to continue to occupy.
Yeah. I think, I'm praying for Joe Biden because he keeps talking about trying to bring the country together. I don't see that anytime soon, outside of a miracle. because I think you're right. The sentiment that is being expressed in the streets have been there for decades, if not centuries, and all Trump has done is just given voice and expression to it in ways that others have not in the past. I think what's happened is we lost the age of political correctness. People no longer felt the need to be politically correct, and they just wanted to speak their truth as they saw it, and their truth was the truth and not a portion of the truth. And we're in a new day. I think we're going to have to figure out how to negotiate this new space in ways that we never had before.
Yeah, I mean, look, other presidents have just been too polite to try to do publicly what Trump has done. Not that they didn't do it. They just did it in more clever ways, and they were smart enough to let surrogates do it and distance themselves from it, and they had more tact and grace. But it's not to say they didn't harness that same racial hatred and, division and ride it into their presidencies and into policy and everything else. I mean, we went through over 100 years of Jim Crow, for God's sake.
Right.
So, but Donald Trump is just, again, he lacks grace. And so that's why in this moment, he will probably never concede. The fact that he's spending all of his time on the golf course is hilarious, given the fact that, he spent his entire campaign dogging Obama out for how much golf he played. And from what I saw, he's played more golf than Obama's 8 years in 4 years.
And he's made money off of it the whole time because he only goes to play at his golf courses. And especially when he's got to fly somewhere, he makes the Secret Service and other people stay at his hotels. They eat the food at his restaurants. He makes money off every deal, right? So, it would be interesting to see how much money he has made since becoming the president outside of his salary.
Wow. Think about that. Obama and other presidents have generally used their golf outings to prop up the local economies in towns and cities when they travel. So they go to private courses, they go to public courses, but they spread the love around because that's a lot of money when the president comes to play. You can also then use that. Hey, president played our golf course. And these are the little small things that we never talk about with Donald Trump. But the fact that for 4 years now, then, like as you said, he has, first of all, profited off of his golfing.
That's right.
Is just beyond the pale. And the fact that he's not even thrown any other golf course a bone.
No, right? Not at all. Even when he's down here in Virginia, he goes to play. He has a golf course in Virginia. He goes to play golf at his club in Virginia. Right.
Jeez.
How about even trying a different club? Just nope. He makes his own money every time. Every time.
So you mentioned the new Congresswoman, and there's also another new Congresswoman, Cori Bush, who they've actually been kind of talking about her and that Georgia Republican Congresswoman in the same breath, that you have two very extremes. I don't particularly care for the comparison because I don't think that the comparison works. One is celebrating QAnon, which is a fiction and a fantasy, which is, I don't know how you put that in the same breath as Black Lives Matter. Right. Because Black Lives Matter, you may not like it, but it is not the opposite of QAnon. But they continue to talk about these two. But I do want to just kind of use that as an opening to talk about Cori Bush, Congresswoman-elect Cori Bush from St. Louis, Missouri. And boy, she walks into Congress wearing a mask. And on her mask, she wears the name Breonna Taylor. To which her Republican colleagues say, "Hey, Breonna, how you doing? Welcome to Congress."
Wow. Because they don't know. They haven't paid any attention.
Welcome to Congress, Miss Breonna Taylor. What state are you from?
Should have said Kentucky. See what they say.
Good God. Are you serious?
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
What would be worse is if Mitch McConnell said it. You sound familiar.
Mitch wouldn't even speak there. So that would be beneath him. Yeah, no. I mean, she's actually an activist, right? She was an activist. She was in the
Yes,
streets and she really
yes.
fought hard. She was out there, Black Lives Matter, and other groups. And I think she was a school teacher, if I remember correctly. And she is now in Congress. Very excited for her and her leadership.
Her name is Cori Bush, Republicans. Dwight Evans, if you're listening this morning, school your Republican colleagues down there and tell them she's not Breonna Taylor. She's representing Breonna Taylor. But to Cori Bush's credit, she said, don't worry about it. It's all good. Because by the time I'm finished, they're going to know her name.
Mm. I hope she hooks up with the squad. I hope the squad grows this year. So I would be excited to see that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, well, you got the four. You got, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley. So there are two new real progressive Black and Latinx congresspeople out of New York. Then you have Cori Bush out of St. Louis area. And I think there's two more that came in. So hopefully the squad grows and that they begin to, agitate and wrestle for power and really push legislation to really impact people's lives in a very powerful way. So I'm hoping that they'll do very well.
All right. Well, so Cori Bush is there. She's got her Breonna Taylor mask. Republican, she is not Breonna Taylor. She is Cori Bush. You need to go do a little bit of research. And once you find out what's wrong with that statement, perhaps we can actually get justice for the family of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, you wonder why you can't get justice? This is a part of the reason why. They don't even know her name to even say her name. Listen, we got to get ready for a quick break. Glad to see Andre on this morning, as well as Hoboken Mendez. Tracy, glad to see you there as well. And hey, what's up, Leslie? LMT is in the house as well. We got to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue this conversation. Got to talk about COVID-19, man. These cases are absolutely ridiculous. Can't get Donald Trump out of office soon enough. We'll be right back.
Just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations. Because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
Save the date. Friday, December 4th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. for the 4th annual WURD Empowerment Experience. And this year, the virtual and on-air event will be extra special as we celebrate the career of radio veteran Cody Anderson and discuss the importance of independent Black media. For more details about the 2020 WURD Empowerment Experience or to RSVP, visit wordradio.com and stay tuned to WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. Not too bad here in Philadelphia this morning. Southbound 95, Cobbin down through Bridge. A little slow through construction. Again, Allegheny through Girard beginning to build there. Northbound 95, no major problems as of yet. Looking at the Vine Expressway westbound. Lay Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Schuylkill westbound University through the Vine. Some slowing there through construction west of that. No other issues. Eastbound side looks pretty good. PA Turnpike, Blue Route 476 also. Nice and light 42, 55, 295 off the way. Pretty good start. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a WURD weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
Sunny skies and a chilly breeze blowing during the day. Winds gusting 25 to 30 miles an hour. That'll limit the warm up to 53 degrees this afternoon. Colder tonight, down to 37 degrees. Might see a brief shower Tuesday morning, then partly sunny in the afternoon. Still windy tomorrow, high of 51. Then it turns colder on Wednesday. 31 the low, just 43 with sunshine Wednesday afternoon. Get the First Alert forecast anytime. Download the free NBC 10 app.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster along with Mark Kelly Tyler. We are here Monday through Fridays from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to get you started with the latest in news, happenings around Philadelphia, and of course, our opinions. And so we've been kicking it off this morning, having a conversation around many of the things that are happening in Washington, D.C. Of course, we always talk about our favorite punching bag, Trump, and, talking about what's happening in Congress. But there's some other things that we need to talk about today, like the rising COVID numbers and the challenges that are facing our communities. And so I know that you had some thoughts about that you wanted to share this morning.
Well, yeah, listen, COVID, and I really want to say this to, the folk who are listening to the program now, that this is not over, right? And I'm trying to think, like 3 people that I know last week personally that tested positive in different places, not even, all together. And so this thing is, it's accelerating at this point. As they've always said, being driven back indoors. When we were just on break, the weather forecast said it's going to be a low of 31 tomorrow, a high of 43. So you're not going to see people, standing outside throwing frisbees and, walking their dogs. People will be huddled indoors. And some of the places that we like to go are still open. Restaurants and other places, stores, they're beginning to kind of put more restrictions on them, starting to see lines again, and them being very sensitive about how many people get in stores. But, there is a certain way in which you get desensitized to something when you have kind of gone several months and it's not impacted you directly.
Right.
We've got to be careful, because until a vaccine comes out and then is widely distributed, and they're saying the soonest that will happen is about August or so, then we are all still susceptible. We went from 80,000 new cases a day 3 weeks ago to almost 200,000 today. And they're saying then, so you need to project out. So a month from now, if the behavior does not change and there's no big interaction, then we will be at 400,000 new cases per day.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. But part of it is, right before the election, I don't know if you remember this, but the Trump administration came out and said, well, there's nothing we can do to control it. So what they basically said was, we're not going to do it. They didn't say this specifically or not say this, but what they were basically saying is that we're not going to do anything to try to control it whatsoever, right? It's done. It's over with. It's out of control. And basically, with Trump going to play golf every day, yeah, that's pretty much what they're saying. Like, Dr. Bricks is out there basically saying, wear face masks, use hand sanitizer, but it's lost on deaf ears because the leader that needs to be saying it won't say it at all. And really, it's his people that are the ones that are not out there. One of the things that they talked about yesterday was that most of the people that were out there were not wearing face masks. They were not walking down the street with face mask on or, protesting and in public with face masks. They were just out there absolutely defiant. And it's his folk that are out there causing the problem. And he needs to check them.
Yeah, well, look at where the numbers are. Was it Minnesota that I saw where the hospital beds are at capacity?
There's quite a few places like that right now. Yeah.
I've been saying all week, all summer long, right? Don't go to Sturgis. And a lot of these states now, North Dakota in particular, the governor is finally stepping in to say something. You're about like 4 months late.
Yep.
Now Sturgis was in South Dakota where they allowed 400,000 plus bikers to come through. Not many wore masks. And I know I'm in a bunch of biker groups, like black biker groups on Facebook and in other kind of social media places. And folk were like, yo, don't go to Sturgis this year. I'm telling you, everybody's like, avoid it like the plague, because it is the plague. Because it'd be one thing, riding is one of the few places where you're going to be socially distant. But everybody's in that little bitty town and just defying wearing masks. It's just crazy.
Right. That's right. That's outlaw culture in general, right? But let's be honest, like some of the Sturgis culture, those are Trumpers as well.
Because this is not about outlaw biker culture. Right. You're right. This is about the president said, I don't need to do this. And damn it, this is our show. I'm with my president.
That's right. That's right. Even, it was actually interesting when they showed a picture of him riding in his caravan yesterday, he did not have a face mask on while he was in there. And a new report that just came out, there are 150 Secret Service agents that are out with COVID-19 right now. Most of them have served on the presidential detail. 150. Nobody's talking about that. That's a big number.
Right. So they either have it or, so we don't know the mix, but some of them are also quarantined because they come in contact with the large number of Secret Service folk who have it. Now, and why wouldn't, I mean, it just makes sense, right? If he is all about trying to be macho and demonstrating his strength by not wearing a mask, he doesn't want anybody around him to wear it. So you got Secret Service people close to you in these crowds, and they cannot wear a mask. And so they are not only risking their life once, willing to stand in front of a bullet for you, but they're also risking their lives now unnecessarily because you don't want them to wear a mask.
Yep.
Speaking of which, the macho thing, just as an aside, I've been wanting to ask this question. I was watching C-SPAN, and when the Trump, the count every vote or whatever, because I guess they kind of taken our thing, count every vote. The Stop the Steal march happened in D.C. this week. Mm-hmm. When they got ready to take off, they took off to not Macho Man, but the other song well known by the Village People, YMCA. Mm-hmm. And they started celebrating and dancing in the streets. That's become kind of like their theme songs. I know that the Village People have kind of issued a cease and desist, like, please stop using our song. We ain't really down with y'all like that. Why are y'all using our song? But can you help me understand how a bunch of like super homophobic people use YMCA as their song, their theme song?
I have no idea. That totally floors me. And actually, I remember hearing that in the background now that you mentioned it on some of the news coverage of this, and I'm like, yeah, YMCA? I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, now that you mentioned it, I'm like, yeah, that is the one song you would not use if you were into toxic masculinity, right? The YMCA is just not that song that you play, and the Village People definitely not.
That's what I'm like. Maybe like his followers think this is like a new band or something, and they don't know who the Village People are. But I mean, I hardly think that the Village People would be welcome at like MAGA rallies.
Could you see the guy with the leather chaps showing up at the MAGA rally, or the guy with had all the headdress, the Native American headdress and everything on at a MAGA rally? Come on now.
Look, it's who the Village People, it's who they are, and so it's just funny to me that's who MAGA would like be attracted. You talking about cognitive dissonance? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like get on that rant. When you said,
I hear you. It actually, yeah, cognitive dissonance. That is a very interesting thing for the MAGA folk, right? They want $15 an hour, but they continue to support Trump, right? They want the expansion of medical marijuana, but they continue to support Trump. They want recreational use of heroin and other drugs, but they support Trump. I mean, these are red states that pass these ballot initiatives at the same time voting for Donald Trump. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it's like you all got the wrong party.
Yeah, well, hey, man, it is they, as you said, they will bite their nose to spite their face almost every time. And so Lois says they probably don't know who the Village People are. Probably not. Glad to see the sheriff on this morning, Sheriff Bilal, and the Chief Public Defender, Kier Bradford Gray. Glad to see both of you all on this morning. And yeah, man, it's something. So, but speaking of that, it's the same thing with COVID, because now the people who are dying and the people who are catching this are people who were not catching it in the spring. So this is, again, hitting places like Minnesota, Wisconsin. It is ravaging the Dakotas, South and North Dakota. South Dakota's governor is still digging her heels in. Like, we're not going to do anything special. Just let it run. Let it run its course. And so, not trying to issue masks. So Joe Biden and his team are going to have their hands full. Not only are they going to be behind the curve because Trump is still not giving them access to transition materials, and they're not having on the record conversations with the COVID task force that's being led by Mike Pence. But just imagine what's going to happen when they come into office. Because you can kind of see this. Trump not giving them the keys to anything until maybe December 31, if then.
If that. I don't even know if that's going to happen then, to be honest with you. I mean, I think this is very problematic, to be honest with you. So COVID-19 is not just a health issue, it's actually a national security issue at the same time. Because if we're not paying attention, we're not keeping watch, we certainly have enemies out there that would like to see the United States fall apart. And I think Trump could be lending himself, I think he is lending himself to that action right now because he can't get over his temper tantrum and pity party for losing the election. So we are in a deep struggle right now because they will not let. Now, I appreciate Joe Biden. One advantage we have with Joe Biden is that he spent 8 years in the White House, right? He understands the administration. He was the number 2 to Barack Obama. He spent a lot of years in the Senate. So there are ways in which he is actually continuing his transition, putting pieces in place. I think the main thing is that he's not getting the security briefings right now, and that his coronavirus team is not able to speak with the current administration's coronavirus team. And I was actually watching some of the Sunday, talk shows, the political talk shows, and they were interviewing both folk from the White House task force and then Biden's task force. And it was actually interesting. Both of them were basically saying, we want to talk to each other so we can pass along information. Because one of the things that's been coming up is the question about how they're going to disperse and prepare to get the vaccine out. And it's problematic that they're not talking about how to make plans for that right now. So they need to actually begin some dialogue and some connection. Now, there are Republican senators that are beginning to say, including Lindsey Graham, that are saying, look, you got to let the Biden administration get access to information and the dollars that they need so that we can make a smooth transition, although Trump is continuing to ignore them right now, even though a couple of times over the weekend he almost indicated that he knew he lost, but then he recounted all of it because he wants to continue his lawsuits going on.
Yeah, yeah. And meanwhile, listen, so USA Today has a story out about what's happening in small rural towns with COVID. And, I mean, it's just these small hospitals in these little towns are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And right, and so doctors are literally begging other hospitals in nearby towns to take their patients. And again, this, the cavalier attitude that people had all summer long because this was branded as a black disease. So that's what's messing America up right now, because so many black people were dying disproportionately early on in the pandemic because of the concentrations in New York City, North Jersey, Philadelphia, places like that. White folk felt like, oh, we can't get it. Now, all of a sudden, it's too late. And you're realizing that COVID is an equal opportunity killer. And so the best thing that you can do is, to stay away from one another. But again, we made it so political, and because it is so connected to Donald Trump at this point, mask wearing or not mask wearing, that these folk are willing to die rather than to protect themselves, and also equally important, protect your neighbor. Because if you got COVID and you and I voted differently and you're near me, COVID don't know that.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
COVID don't know I voted for Biden, and I should be good.
And doesn't care.
You walk up, right. Man, these people are crazy. So listen, one other thing before I know we're coming up on the break real quick. Philadelphia City Council.
Uh-oh. Let's talk about Philly City Council.
I mean, I like City Council. I do. Yeah. I like them individually. I don't have one council member, even the ones who are not, I dislike any of them. I do not. But, man, this story out of the Tribune.
Oh, I think I've read this.
The city legislators vote to create and fund new nonprofit with $10 million aimed at reducing poverty.
Yes.
This seems like, remember when Austin Powers, the very first, did you watch those movies?
No.
Oh my God, are you serious? You don't know the Austin Powers trilogy, Mike Myers?
I know the movies. I just never watched.
No, I'm just saying, but you never saw them? Oh, no. Come on, Mary. You gotta put that on your to-do list. So he's frozen in the 60s. When he comes back in, the 20th century or so, Dr. Evil is like, I'm going to hold the world ransom for $10 million. Right? This guy's like, Evil, that's not a lot of money anymore. He says, oh, really? What should I ask for? That's kind of what this is like. Like, what? So they're trying to help 100,000 people who are in deep poverty in the city with $10 million. That's like $100 per person. What can you possibly do to alleviate poverty of the biggest, poorest city in America? Royster, help me, please.
So I read this.
What is the play here?
I read this article, and I thought to myself, well, this is very interesting. I'm actually more interested in trying to understand what they're going to. I think what they're going to do is do what they normally do, which is throw money at the symptoms, and not get down to the core of what the disease is. And $10 million is not going to be enough to get at it, right? It's significant investment in both systems, structures, and policies that will actually be transformative in helping to alleviate the issue of poverty here in the city of Philadelphia. Like, how about having enough courage to take on the state and create a $15 an hour minimum wage for Philadelphia? That would actually be great, and it would actually be transformative. Hey, I got another one. How about do like San Francisco and make sure that every person in Philadelphia has health insurance so that people are not going into deep poverty over not having health insurance, right? We have a large age population, but some of them who are on Medicare can't get Medicaid, and as a result of that, spend a significant amount of their money on medical care and pharmaceuticals and things like that. How about a universal basic income? If you really want to end poverty in Philadelphia, actually just to get people out of deep poverty, if you created a universal basic income just from the city, and you could actually do this probably for $100, $200 million, have a universal basic income that would cover people's food, clothing, living expenses, and enough for them to be able to get over and move into the next bracket of financial security, that could actually be but it's going to take ingenuity, creativity, and deep imagination to really come up with some of these solutions. And by the way, rather than having a bunch of city council people talking about this, how about we talk to the poor folk? How about we talk to the folk that are struggling in deep poverty right now and ask them specifically what are the tools and things that they need to be able to help them be able to live a life that's not lived in poverty? I don't know. We have a tendency to want to talk to PhDs and all these experts. How about the real experts of the people that are struggling every day? Ask them specifically what they need and how their lives can be turned around. How about we provide housing for folk? We have, at one point, I knew the city had 25,000 abandoned houses back in the early part of the 2000s. How about we get those houses fixed up? I know that the unhoused community has been working on that, but, how about we accelerate that and get people in housing, and we find ways to help support their utility payments and things. There's actual really practical ways and things to be able to do this. But $10 million is like giving a homeless person $1 on the street. And a dollar does not buy much anymore.
Here you go. Get yourself out of homelessness and poverty. Yeah. Man, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to continue this because I have some thoughts about the issue of home ownership, and especially as it relates to what happened this summer with the looting and, a lot of, like setting things on fire and things of that nature. I think it solves a multitude of issues. But when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. This is the Power Hour. We're way past our time. Kwesa is going to bring out that whip. We'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? I know you know the word, no, not the station, but this word, J-O-B that is, and our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
As a business owner, hiring and developing people from the community that your company serves is one of the best ways to show commitment to that community. Let WURD Radio help with Livelihood, our new initiative that connects Philadelphians with companies like yours. We'll feature your business, open employment opportunities, and resources to connect your company with talent and ensure that you reach your target demographic. To learn more about how Livelihood can help you build your team, visit wordworks.com. That's WURD Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Volume picks up Schuylkill Expressway, westbound University through the Vine, through the ongoing construction. Eastbound side, not that bad as of yet. Westbound Vine Expressway, 8th out the Broad, a bit slower. Then again, delays Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Southbound 95 getting jammed. Cotman Avenue down through Bridge. An accident in that construction area. South of that, Allegheny through Girard beginning to pick up. No major problems. Northbound 95 yet. 55 northbound Deptford into 42 getting a bit busy. Staples helps you ship holiday gifts and packages with care this season. Right now, save 30% on select shipping supplies and 25% on UPS Expedited shipping services. Offer ends 1/2/21 while supplies last. See store for details. Save big at Staples. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a WURD weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
Sunny skies today and gusty winds will keep things cool. A high of 53 degrees this afternoon. Then it gets chilly tonight. We'll drop down into the 40s during the evening hours. 37 the low tomorrow morning. There's a chance we'll see a brief shower Tuesday morning, but then partly sunny in the afternoon and a high of 51. And the wind's still blowing on Tuesday and into Wednesday. Wednesday's going to be a chilly one, just 43 degrees with bright sunshine during the day. Get the First Alert forecast anytime. Download the free NBC 10 app.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour with Mark Kelly Tyler and Dwayne David Royster. We're here Monday through Fridays from 6 to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news, happenings around Philadelphia, and, of course, our opinions. Hey, WURD listeners, rep your support for WURD Radio, Philly's black-owned, black talk radio station, now through November 16th. Get a free WURD sweatshirt when you join or renew your membership. Use the code SAVESPACE, as in the new show, Save Space, hosted by Sincerely Sarita, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. Go to wordradio.com/join now and use the code SAVESPACE to rep Black Talk Media today. So we have to go ahead and join WURD so you can get your sweatshirt. I have to go get my sweatshirt. I need to do this.
Or you could just get your own show and then they give you one. No, they'll actually make us pay for it too.
Actually, I don't have a WURD sweatshirt. I don't think they actually have my size, so I think that's part of the problem. Yes.
I had to buy all my WURD gear. Hey. If you're listening, management, I'd like a sweatshirt, please. It's cold outside, and I want to rep you. So listen, you talk, I mean, everything you just laid out, yes, that just seems like it makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. You know, universal health care, a living wage. I mean, just things that just, you know, this is low-hanging fruit, right? And if you want your city to rise, then, you know, you cannot put all of the money and concentrate all the wealth into center city and then expect that at some point folk from the hood that you have left behind won't come and just tear all that stuff down. When I was out there during the looting that first night, I think that was like May 31st, or May 30th in this summer. And just walking through downtown, I mean, a lot of those young folk out there, they didn't know what was going on. They were not out there for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, anything else. It had nothing to do with that. And you were watching kind of the convergence of multiple issues happening. So there were some small pockets of protesters, but then there were just people who had, after going through the pandemic for several months, who had been cut off from even the meager means that they had, and folk who, again, as I always say, ride the trains with other people who have an abundance of things. This was their opportunity to take stuff, right? So if you want to protect what you have, then you have to make sure that everybody has.
Right.
You know, you can't build enough walls, you can't put enough ADT on your house or brinks or whatever. You've got to find other kind of ways. And the best thing is to invest in people, because that makes a society a better place. So what is wrong with us having some kind of aggressive home ownership program in the city of Philadelphia?
Right.
Because when you own your own home, let me tell you, I remember what it was to rent and how I treated apartments coming up. And I remember, and now I know what it is to own your own place and how you look at your neighborhood differently. And the thing, you know, you stop and you picking stuff up, it's 4 doors down from your house. But you know why? Because it's your neighborhood.
That's right. And
your money is invested in it. I mean, if you have high levels of home ownership in an area, the people who live there will police it. They will not let people go too far. They're not going to let you burn anything, because you know what? If you make this neighborhood a place that people don't like, then that means that I've just lost $50,000 to $60,000 in home equity because the value of my house just fell.
That's right.
It just makes sense. And I don't know why council won't do things like that versus, I don't know, as Roberta said on social media, this is just something to make it look like they're taking action.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it is something. I mean, you know, the folk like us who are on the radio all the time and TV and even on the newspaper that are always, you know, asking the question, how is it that you can have the poorest big city in America and just not do anything about it? Over and over again for years. I mean, this is not a new fact. This has been going on for at least the 10 years that we've been doing power, that this has been the status of Philadelphia. And so, you know, now, you know, 10 years in, now we're like, oh, we're going to have an anti-poverty initiative. What about 10 years ago that could really have impacted? Because, you know, the numbers of folk in poverty are going down, but part of the reason they're going down is that the city's gentrifying at a very fast rate right now. And so a lot of white folk are moving in. A lot of people actually from New York are moving into Philadelphia because it's so much cheaper. And they're actually driving up the cost of housing in the city, and it's basically chasing people out of the area. So, you know, it's unconscionable to me that, you know, we're basically throwing a tip at a problem that needs, you know, a Marshall Plan. We're throwing $10 million when we actually need to have a whole type of plan that's really designed to be about rebuilding Philadelphia, the economy, and the people of Philadelphia to really be able to make significant change.
So, I mean, I was going to ask how that happens.
Well, that's a whole other story. I mean, well, look, I mean, here's the thing, right? I mean, to be able to make that happen, you need a mayor and a city council that are going to take it very seriously and make the kind of investments that are necessary to be able to make that work, right? And it's not just an investment in poverty, but it's also an investment in workforce development, an investment in healthcare, it's an investment in mental health services, it's an investment in education, it's an investment in housing, it's an investment in all those things. That's why I said you need a Marshall level plan, right? And you need to expect that you're going to spend $1 billion to be able to pull, at minimum, to be able to pull the city into a direction where it needs to go. And note that if you do this well, if you do it correctly, that $1 billion can actually be, can grow into a burgeoning economy in the city that can be really transformative. Why do I always say this? Because folk in the bottom 25% of the income bracket are 100% consumers, meaning that the more money they have, the more money they're going to spend. They don't save it because they don't have enough to save. So they're constantly churning the money and building the economy. If you want to build the economy, give it to the folk who suffer the deepest. They will spur the economy on for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, listen, I know we're coming up toward the end of the show. It's hard to believe that hour is almost gone just that fast. but this week, I know that one of the things that we wanted to talk about is defund, and I think that just the messaging in it, it's a word that just it's triggering, no pun intended, and it implies that you want to make things less safe. But I know that I think Brian Mercer was willing to come on and have a deeper conversation, a deeper dive about what defunding the police means. And it's something that we certainly need to talk about because the conversation is not going away. We have just passed, for example, a new law in Philadelphia that's calling for greater police oversight. And what that will look like and what shape that will take will be a part of this conversation as well. And so I just want to kind of like tease that out, that's one of the things that we certainly want to talk about. Going to definitely be talking about Georgia this week as well.
Yeah.
All eyes are on Georgia in these 2 Senate seats. I quite frankly hope Donald Trump stays on the golf course till January 5th or 6th, and that he stays unfocused, and that his people continue to march around in million MAGA rallies that only have 10,000 people. Because, again, if he's there and he's not in Georgia, he is actually their secret weapon, but he's so pissy right now, he probably won't engage. So I hope he stays in that mood, at least, again, until January 5th, and that Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff can win those 2 seats and bring some balance back into the U.S. Senate. So, but again, those are 2 things I know we've got to talk and take a deeper dive into on this week.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's great. We had Billy Honor from New Georgia Project on Friday on Solutions. So he was really great to talk with and get some perspective on down there.
What did he say? What was his insight, just in a nutshell?
I mean, his insight really, folk are tired. They got a lot of work they have to do to really keep the base motivated and get them out and energized. The help that they need is really like, can folk call in from, wherever they live, try to, reach out to their family and friends that are down in Georgia and remind them they need to go vote, make sure people get requesting a mail-in ballot, and reaching out to a whole crop of 18-year-olds who just turned, the birthdays turned, that can actually vote in this runoff election as well. So there was a lot of good stuff that he was sharing in that.
Well, good. So, and I know, it'd be great to have him or somebody else on for this show as well, because I know.
Yeah. And say Ford, who's the executive director of New Georgia Project. We should get her on.
And New Georgia Project, for people who don't know, this is the group that was in large responsible for this mass voter registration and turnout. Is that right?
Yeah, and actually it was founded by Stacey Abrams. So,
right, that's what I thought.
It was founded years ago by Stacey Abrams. She doesn't run it now, but she founded it years ago. So it would be great if we can get Stacey Abrams to get on. That would probably be very good. So anyway, well, listen, everybody, thanks for checking us out here on the Power Hour. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. to bring you the latest in news, thoughts about what's happening around Philadelphia, and, of course, our opinions. We deeply appreciate you. Shout out to Quason Mathis for holding it down on the boards. For all the people that checked us out on Facebook, and Carla, sorry we couldn't get to you today. We don't have a lot of time. But listen, go out, change the damn world, because if you don't, nobody else will. Peace.